Welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and today I'm very glad to have on our show our police chief, Norma Hardy. She was hired in July of 2021, so she's been with us getting close to 2 years now, and she is Vermont's first black woman police chief. With many years of distinguished service in the Port Authority facilities of New York City and New Jersey, she's received numerous commendations and awards throughout her career. She brings to our town her many skills and her own experiences of diversity, inclusion, and equity, with a focus on building bridges and filling gaps between townsfolk, community partners, and our police officials. Welcome, Chief Hardy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful to have you on the show. I, of course, have wanted to have you on the show and was waiting for you to get totally grounded here and part of the community. So do you feel like you've really moved into settling in?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I feel settled. You know, I live in town, so it's been pretty good. And, you know, every day I'm meeting new people or talking to a new group.
It's a pretty diverse community, isn't it?
Yes, yes. Yeah. Very diverse ideas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, not diverse in many other ways, but yes, it is Vermont,
yes,
after all.
It is Vermont, yes, that's true. So, yeah.
And speaking of which, and I know you've been asked this question a whole lot, but you were in New York City, you were dealing with urban issues. Why Vermont? How come?
You know, it's like when I saw the opening for here, you know, I had been here vacationing, you know, I knew Springfield, you know, so my family and I had been here a couple of times and really liked the area.
Yeah.
When I saw that it was an opening, I was like, you know, I would like to try that, you know, in Vermont. And I read about Brattleboro.
Uh-huh.
I did my research about Brattleboro and some of the things that they had, some of the services.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would like to go try to be a part of that. So, you know.
Because you had retired, right?
Yes.
In Virginia.
Yes, so I was living in Virginia. I had moved to Virginia about 2 years ago, once my mom passed, because I was living upstate in the Catskills for almost 7 years. Yeah. And I retired in 2018. Yeah.
And so the lure of the snow and the cold is what got you, right?
No, it was some of the programs. I really, the snow and the cold, you know.
I know.
I'm just learning how to just adjust.
Yes. Well, it seems like every year we all kind of have to readjust as well.
Yeah,
it's not
true.
like it's a surprise, though. When you were growing up, where did you grow up?
In Brooklyn.
In
Brooklyn,
Brooklyn.
New York, yeah.
In Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And what was your family like?
It was a bunch of us. It was a lot of us. 11 kids. And just growing up, my mom was single parent and, you know, always making sure we went to school. We always had enough to eat. And my mother was very active in a lot of things in the community, like, you know, the betterment of the community. You know, and she was, you know, we'd have potluck dinners. If someone couldn't pay their rent, we had parties, and my mother would sell baked goods and stuff and help somebody pay their rent.
Wow.
And so we always felt that sense of public service.
Yes, yes. And did you have any mentors or any influences to bring you into the police world?
When I was younger, not really. It was a fortunate incident that happened with my family in Brooklyn when I was younger, and there was one officer that responded that, you know, he had a little talk with me to the side, and he said to me that if you just continue to complain about how things are, then nothing will change. If you want change, then you need to be a part of the change, and that just always stayed with me.
How old were you? Do you remember?
I was probably a teenager, you know,
Yeah.
probably at least 15,
Yeah.
15, yeah.
And did your family support that?
My mother, well, anything I really told my mom I was going to do, she supported it.
That's
so,
great.
You know, I just, you know, well, Mom, I'm going to go, you know, walk on the moon. She'd be like, okay, if that's what you want to do. You know, my grandmother was the same way. You know, Grandma, I want to go join the military. Okay, you sure? Yep, that's what you want to do.
That's wild.
That's what I did, yeah.
And did you start off in the National Guard?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
And you did that for a number of years. And what led you into, because I know you studied criminal justice at some point.
Yes. When I got out of high school, I was, I had been part of a program called Upward Bound. And that was that if you wanted to go into law, you took college courses while you were in high school, and you got to go to trials, and you got to go be with judges and district attorneys, and you got to sit in on some trials, and then you got to do a lot of mock trials, and that's when I was like, oh, I really want to do this. And then I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I went to a class, and the person that was teaching the class said, you know, what kind of lawyer do you want to be? Do you want to be a defense attorney, or do you want to be a DA? You know, and I was like, oh no, I want to be a defense attorney because I want to protect people from, you know, going to jail. And he asked me a question, and he said, well, you know, you might have to defend someone and knowing that they were guilty. And I think I kind of like hadn't thought about that, so I kind of changed my whole focus. I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't really know like what I wanted to do at that point. And so I started out actually working for EMS, and I was an EMT with New York City EMS, and I did that for a number of years.
Yeah.
And then working closely with law enforcement officers, I said, you know what, I'd like to be on that side of law enforcement, and that's when I got like started to say I want to do that. And then I remembered back to that officer that I had spoken to.
Yes.
And that made me think, you know what, this must be what my chances to do this.
The Army National Guard and EMT, that was around the same time.
Yeah, I joined the National Guard in the 80s. And I joined the EMS 1990, I believe.
Thinking about you and your job and you know what you've done over the years, which we'll get into. I know that you have had incredible training, you know, years and years of training, but your job comes with that notion that at any moment you're going to be called into action and you have to be prepared.
Yes.
Yeah, could you talk a little about that?
You train, and most of the time you train and you're training for things that you hope you never have to utilize your training for. So, you know, I've always been kind of high strung anyway, you know. So I'm always paying attention to my surroundings. I've always been like that even as a kid. And so just the training, I love to learn new things. And so any training that I've done, I keep it in the back of my head, and it will come to you if you have to do it. You know,
Yes.
I'm fortunate that I survived the first World Trade Center bombing, and that really kicked in, you know, of training and being able to get people to listen to me, even though I wasn't really sure about anything I was saying. I could give the impression that I knew what I was talking about.
That's right.
And that was a way to get people to come with me.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
Your story, and I encourage folks to check this out. Chief Hardy gave a wonderful talk to the kids at Landmark College.
Landmark,
yeah. And they asked some really wonderful questions. But your focus at that time was talking about the '93 attack on the World Trade Center, and then 2001. So those two incidents alone were pretty incredible, and your stories that go with it. So you could look up on BCTV and just look up Chief Norma Hardy and Landmark College, because she does tell those stories in depth. And the things that you had to do, and the things that you were called to do, and at the same time, and this is what you talk about that so impressed me, how scared you were, and how that element of fear was both a driving force, but also your mission was to get folks out of there.
To get them out, right, because that's what I was trained to do,
And you were able to do it.
I was able to do it, and you know, that's just a blessing, really.
Yes.
You know, that I was fortunate enough to be able to do it,
Yeah, and of course, for those of us who only saw it on TV, we can only imagine what that was like. But your roles in both of those things were so much was called upon for you to be in action and to be leading. And I think leadership, again, you've been a leader, you've been a lieutenant, you've been a sergeant, you've been a chief, you've gone up the ranks, as they say.
Yes. When I was a young cop, I never would have imagined that at some point I would be a chief. You know, that I probably took me a while before I even thought I'd go to sergeant. And then when I got to sergeant, I was like, okay, this is good. I like this. All right, you know. And when you're going up the ranks and you are making these promotions, you're really just like, oh, okay, all right, I can do that, you know, and just keep going. And I just was very fortunate, you know, and I had good mentors. Even so far back as the National Guard, because even when I was in the National Guard, I was one of the only a couple of females that made the rank of sergeant within my unit, and that was because the sergeant that was there was a mentor. A lot of the guys that I worked with were veterans, and so I learned a lot from them.
Yes.
And then I was able to form relationships with them that they would listen to me when I got rank, because I never would ask them to do stuff that I wouldn't do with them anyway. So,
Right.
you know, so that made a difference. And I took that with me all the way up through the ranks as in the law enforcement. You know, even as a chief, I still train with my officers.
You do.
You know, even now I just went to Vermont Academy not too long ago. So I'm still learning, you know. Like I said, I like learning, so
Yeah.
I don't mind it, and I feel like you can never be overly trained. You always have to keep up your skills, you know, and hope, like I said, that you never need them. So.
Right. And when you went back to training, for instance, in Vermont, what was it, a different type of training that you were doing?
Oh yeah, well, you know, I've been doing this about 30 years now, so I had to learn some new things. And then Vermont has its own way of doing things as opposed to the Port Authority would have had anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm learning the Vermont way right now. Yeah.
Well, I would think that just in terms of the breadth of the job, New York City, New Jersey, the Port Authority, all of that, coming to Vermont, what's the difference like for you?
It's just a smaller scale as far as the amount of people that I'm dealing with and the size of my department. I think there's a lot of the same issues, though. You know, I think that the issues are there. That just may be framed a little differently. But as a chief and as a member of the community, the problems go from community to community. You know, so I take it as something that if I want to solve something or if I want to help with a problem in the community, I take it for what it is and not just how big or small it may be.
And are you seeing in Brattleboro, you've already sort of alluded to this, you're seeing the same types of problems here?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That are going, you know, different levels of the same problems. But, you know, some things are not New York, New Jersey, some things are not Vermont, some things are just nationwide, you know, the opioid crisis, shortages in staffing, policing, all of these things are everywhere, you know, so it's not just Brattleboro, it's not just Vermont.
Right.
You know, and these are things that leaders within the law enforcement community are facing on a daily basis, you know, so.
All the time. And human nature you're dealing with.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, that, of course, that's wherever you are, you know, so.
And that doesn't change too much, probably, right?
Really doesn't, you know. It's like, as surprising as it may be, people are people and you know, have the same wants, desires, and have the same angers and have the same problems, you know. So it's like, it could be on a smaller scale, but it's basically the same issues.
I feel like in Brattleboro, and this is, of course, through our country, the last few years especially, we're coming to so many different kinds of reckonings.
Yes.
You know, and I think we're, especially having come through the pandemic and looking at it on the other side, sort of, so many things have come to the surface that have been there for so long. You know, systemic racism, economic disparities, homelessness, mental health issues, all these things you've been dealing with. In your 30 years, have you seen big changes in those places?
You know, I thought I had, and I think when I had gotten to the point where I was at my maybe 25th year, at that point I thought I had seen more changes than. I know that people say it a lot that COVID, you know, the pandemic has set us back, but it actually has set us back in so many things that I feel that we were on our way, and it brought us back to the beginning again with a lot of things. That's how I feel about it, because, you know, the racism, when you talk about systemic racism, you know, I've seen both sides of that, and being in law enforcement, of course, you know, it was not always a chosen field for some people that I grew up with. I've been racially profiled, so I think that helps me bring a more rounded attitude about things because I have gone through that. But I think that some things you're starting to see now that maybe we didn't see before, because racism also is within medical, within accessibility to medical treatments.
Yes.
I find that I've seen that even just from speaking to people in the community, and I've seen it just being in the city during some of the pandemic, and with my family, having to get care for my mom. I saw a lot of disparities, and I think that some of us that didn't deal with those things at the time didn't understand that they existed as much. I try to, like I said, I try to do my research, and so I just thought, I started seeing that there were disparities in treatment of people of color, in treatment of people of color when it comes to things like cancer treatment, cancer screenings, and prenatal care, stuff like that, and COVID. So it really was a wake-up call to me, saying that, wow, I thought we had come much further than we actually had, because maybe it was the life that I was believing.
Well, being in Brattleboro, are things louder to you in that way? Is it because we don't have the numbers here? Do the things pop up more of being inequality or any kind of disparities like that?
I don't know if the actual disparities pop up more as people speaking about it more freely.
Yeah.
I find that people are more open to talk about those things.
Yes.
And being in Brattleboro, where you have a not as layered existence.
Yeah.
So it's more one-on-one conversations that go on, and more life experience conversations that are going on.
Yes.
And I think that's what I appreciate about when I came out to Vermont, is that we can have these more one-on-one conversations. You're not talking from 100 feet above everything.
Yes, that's right. Just sheer numbers alone, make that difference. Yes, and I think that the town of Brattleboro in general is willing to communicate and to voice their opinions and feelings about things as well. We have. How's that going for you?
It's interesting. It's interesting, but I don't mind it. Like I said, I'm open to all conversations. Even the hard ones, as long as they're respectful. That's the only thing I ask.
Right.
If you have conversations, even if we disagree, as long as we stay on a respectful plane.
Yes. Right. Which doesn't always happen either,
No,
right?
it does
Not
at all.
You've become a leader in different forms in the course of your job, and a trailblazer. And you've gotten, as the accolades, you've gotten Port Authority's first woman chief, that department's first black woman inspector. You got the Officer of the Year Award for the International Association of Women Police Officers, a Trailblazer Award from the National Organization of Women in Law Enforcement. You've had many things like that. I get the feeling that you didn't set out to do those things, but they have happened by your very nature.
It's been wonderful. And I didn't have that thought. The only thought I actually ever really remember having was I did think I could be the first woman chief. I did think that in the Port Authority. Way back when, my boss asked me one time, where do you see yourself in the future? And I do think I saw myself as the first woman chief, but I didn't really think that it was really going to happen. You just, if your boss asks you, you're just going to just say, what's on your mind. So, and then when it really happened, I was like, wow, that happened.
It must be amazing for your family to see.
My mom, God rest her soul, she was she was so proud of everything, and my family, of course, all my family, my brother, my baby brother is, I always tell him he's my hero, he's a veteran, and he's always been there and shown my uncles, my partner. Everyone has always shown me support for whatever. I can just go, hey, I'm going to go get an award for something. And it's like, okay, well, let's get the van. Everybody's going, How many of us can fit there? That kind of thing. And when I did get promoted to chief, it was just a great time because everybody got to come. And my friend who, he drives people for a living, volunteered to drive my whole family to my promotion ceremony, so it was really
that's
nice. My
pretty
mother
great.
felt really special with that. Yeah.
And she was able to see all of this.
Yeah, she was able to see
That's
that.
really wonderful. In relation to Brattleboro and the you're working with, I know, a lot of different organizations, a lot of different folks who have formed different community groups.
Yeah.
Project CARE is one of them.
Yes.
And I know that Mike Fitzgerald talked about that years ago when he was on the show.
Yeah.
And that's something that the police department came up with, is that correct?
Yeah, they did it. They came up with it, and it's really great. I've met the young man that's running things over at Turning Point now, and you know, we try to give them all the support, for the program as we can. I think it's a very beneficial program for the community. And it lets the police be able to take a little step back and have people who have lived these same experiences, be there for people who are going through their struggles. So I think that the Brattleboro Police Department should be very proud of this. This is an outstanding program.
Yes.
And Chief Fitzgerald should be very proud also.
You also have Groundworks,
Yes.
which is a wonderful.
Yes, we're working with Groundworks. We're meeting all the new people that are coming in and taking over with Groundworks, and forming those working relationships with them. So I feel like that's getting stronger every day also.
And through all this, much like your mom, you're a single mom,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for a while.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bringing up
Yeah.
a
My nieces, yeah.
couple of girls.
Yeah.
And how do they respond to your job? Are they following in any footsteps?
No. No. The only one that's actually gone into law enforcement is my brother.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, my brother's in law enforcement. I have a nephew who's in corrections, and that's really been, most of my family are business folks and blue collar workers. That's how we grew up, and my dad. My dad was always that whatever you chose to do, you did it the best that you could do it. If you clean toilets, then those would be the cleanest toilets that anyone's ever seen.
Right.
So we all grew up with that work ethic.
That's a very strong thing.
Yeah.
Very supportive as well. And one of the things I was reading about you a little bit, and you were talking about being a leader, being either lieutenant, sergeant, or chief, and having folks that were working for you, working with you, but also you were the head of whatever the department was. And you said what was important to you is that police should always have integrity and always have empathy. And if you can do that every time you put on the uniform, that's half the battle.
Yeah.
It sort of goes along with the way you were raised.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I believe that. Yeah, you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror, and you have to know that throughout your day, you treated people fairly, and you treated people with respect. And that, because it's already hard putting this uniform on, and you can't fight the battles that you're fighting with society, and then have to fight your own battles, being able to do the job. So it comes with a lot, and that's why I always try to make sure that my officers know, that they can talk to me if they're having a hard time, or I support them in doing their job. I think that's important to feel like someone has your back.
Right, and understands what you've gone through as well.
Yeah.
You talk about being aware of your surroundings, like you're always aware of your surroundings.
Yeah.
And is this the same probably holds true for sort of assessing the temperature of the town itself?
Yes. And and assessing the temperature of people once I have to come and speak with them, or go meet with them, or speak with groups. I can basically just see how this is going to go.
Yeah. And that's another thing that you do, is you have done your own mentoring and speaking, public speaking to different kinds of groups.
I was doing a lot of speaking for a while, that panels with women in law enforcement. Some graduations from police academies, but I really, really enjoy speaking to young people. So I always will accept going to speak at a school. It was a time that I spoke at, I think maybe 30 to 40 schools across the country, right after 9/11, actually.
Oh.
And that was really like a lot of fun. And I got to speak for anywhere from middle school kids all the way up to high school kids, up to college age. And I just enjoy that. You know,
You do.
I enjoyed just their enthusiasm and their questions, you know.
Yes, yes.
So I basically I still say the same, and I try to bring the same kind of energy when I go to speak to whatever the group is.
Again, in the course of the time that you've been doing this, have there been big changes, or what kinds of changes in relation to women in your field?
Not enough changes, you know. Still not enough women go into this field, but I will say there have been some really big changes. There are women in positions now that it's just outstanding. There's been just this huge hiring of women in the major roles. Places that have never had women before as leaders
Yeah.
have that now.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm fortunate enough to know a few of them
Uh-huh.
that have come into their roles in different places across the country. You know, and so and then look at New York City. You have a woman police commissioner. You know, that's outstanding. You know, so yeah, so slowly but surely we're getting those positions.
Yes, and it has changed a lot since you started out.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
In coming to Brattleboro, what's most surprised you about being here?
What's most surprised me? That's a good one. I guess just the I'm trying to think what is a surprise. It hasn't been really a surprise to me because I could tell there were a lot of things being offered here. I think what surprised me the most is when some people want to voice their opinions at me, and how they have no filter to do that, you know. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes it does get kind of rough. You know, I try to keep every situation at a point where we can have a discussion. As I said, I believe in being respectful, and I believe in people being able to feel that they're being heard. But some people, I just am just amazed at how they will just. It's like they're the end all and all, and they have no problem to approach you and basically just yell in your face. I just found that boldness. It just is a surprise to me. And another thing that has surprised me is some of the things that you cannot say, like don't do that. And that's not just Brattleboro. I think it's been Vermont. That's been a surprise to me because I've had to learn about some, certain laws and certain policies, and learn about them. That, of course, 20, 30 years ago may have been completely different.
Yeah.
So that surprised me about a lot of things where you cannot do anymore as far as if like writing a ticket, stuff like that. I've become a little surprised at some of that because I'm learning, and still learning. I'm learning the system, the criminal justice system has changed immensely. So those are, I find little surprises there.
Yeah.
Quite often,
Yes,
actually.
yes.
So, yeah. So those things have surprised me, but really just when people just walk up and just start yelling at me, like, okay, I don't know what your problem is yet, but because they know I'm the chief, and and it's immediately that they think I can just immediately fix whatever the problem is.
Yeah.
I don't think that's surprising because it's Brattleboro. I think that it would be in any small community.
A small community, yes, yes. One thing I think I was surprised by is the fact that you write poetry.
Yes, I do. Yeah, it's a stress relief. It's something that I've always done. I've done it since I was a kid. When I was 9, I actually won a poetry contest, and it was for sneakers. I don't remember which sneakers. It might have been Nike or Reebok. Not Reebok. one of the old sneaker companies. I had to write a poem. It was a contest, and I won a $50 gift certificate.
Wow,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah. So I've been writing for a while.
That's what, and you still are writing?
Yeah, when I sit down and actually write,
Yeah.
I've have a couple of published poems, and of course I wrote a poem during 9/11 to honor the officers that we lost in the Port Authority, and you know, so that was one that got a lot of attention.
Yes.
And you know, it's a song now, and yeah, that one got a lot of attention. So.
Yes, and I heard that that also is one that is often at different memorials for some of the fallen of 9/11.
Yeah.
That's been read. That's
Yeah.
about accolades,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's really the you know, that's the dearest to your heart. That's the one. You know, I remember driving to the Washington Memorial with my then partner. We were driving to go honor our officers in Washington, and we're listening to the song that we had just gotten the CD with the song on it. And we're listening to the song, and I remember she said to me, "How does it feel to hear something you wrote, like, you know, on a song, man?" You know, and I was like, "Man, it feels awesome." I was like, you know, but yeah, so
that's very exciting.
That's
what
very
a
exciting.
cool thing. Well, Chief Hardy, thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. This has been great.
Yeah, it's a great to have a conversation with you and hear your
absolutely.
take on things. Yeah, I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Yep.
we'll be seeing a lot more of you.
Oh, yes, probably.
Thanks to all of you for joining us today. Wonderful to speak with Police Chief Norma Hardy. She is a heartbeat of this community, and she is listening and watching and taking it all in, and we're so glad that she's here. Thank you. We will see you next time.